Rushing through the airport terminal to catch her international flight, the high-powered attorney noticed a homeless woman with an infant sitting against a concrete pillar. Something about the woman's eyes stopped her cold. Without thinking, she handed over the keys to her secluded lake house. "I'm flying out for merger negotiations for 3 months. Stay as long as you need." Due to complications in the deal, Jane returned only after 7 months. Remembering the homeless woman and her baby, she drove straight to the lake house and froze at what she discovered. Jane Clark was a corporate attorney who had built her reputation on ice-cold precision and ruthless deal-making. At 48 years old, she stood at the pinnacle of her profession. She had dedicated her entire adult life to the law, and as a result, she had never allowed herself the vulnerability of family. She only had her younger sister, Maya, who constantly reminded her that running from the past wouldn't erase it, and this irritated Jane to no end. Jane stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, exactly 9:15 at night. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and closed her eyes for a moment. The day had been brutal. The merger negotiations had hit a wall. Her lead associate had quit, and after that, another 3 hours on damage control calls. 48 is an age when the body starts keeping score of every sleepless night. She caught her reflection in the darkened window. Her rich brown skin glowed under the recessed lighting. Her long, wavy hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. The designer blue outfit, the layered gold necklaces, the flawless makeup, every detail meticulously controlled. 30 years ago, when she gave birth at 18, she looked completely different. She was broken, terrified, drowning in shame. Now, every day felt like a performance she had to execute perfectly to prove that impossible choice had been worth it. Jane turned from the window, her heels clicking on the marble floor as she headed toward the home bar. The penthouse surrounded her with luxury and silence. No, not complete silence. From her phone on the counter came the persistent buzz of an incoming call. She walked to the kitchen island and looked at the screen. Maya's name flashed insistently. Her younger sister, the only person who knew the truth about what happened 3 decades ago. Jane picked up the phone but didn't answer, just stared at it, her finger hovering over the decline button. The ringing stopped, then immediately started again. "Persistent as always," Jane muttered, finally accepting the call. "Maya, I'm in the middle of—" "Stop!" Maya's voice cut through, weak but urgent. "Just stop, Janie. Stop hiding behind that merger and listen to me." Jane felt something tighten inside her chest. Every conversation with her sister followed the same pattern, the same pleading tone, the same attempt to drag Jane back to the past she'd spent 30 years trying to escape. She walked to the bar, pulled out a bottle of expensive scotch, and poured herself 2 fingers. "I'm listening," Jane said, her voice coming out colder than she'd intended, "but I have exactly 5 minutes before my next conference call." "I'm dying, Jane." Maya's words landed like a physical blow. "Stage 4. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe a month, and I need to see you before—" "Don't," Jane interrupted, taking a large swallow of scotch. The alcohol burned her throat, but she didn't stop. "Don't do this to me right now." "When then?" Maya's voice broke. "When will it be convenient for you to face what happened? When I'm in the ground?" Jane set the glass down on the marble counter with more force than necessary. She crossed her arms over her chest, the gold bangles on her wrists catching the light. It was as if a vault she'd kept sealed for decades suddenly threatened to burst open. All the grief she'd buried, all the guilt she'd transformed into ambition, all the questions she'd silenced with success, it all came rushing up. "You want to talk about what happened?" Jane's voice trembled despite her attempt at control. "Fine. Let's talk about how I was 18 and pregnant and terrified, and everyone, including you, told me adoption was the only choice. How I held my baby girl for exactly 10 minutes before they took her away. How I named her Naomi in my heart, even though I had no right to name her at all." She grabbed the glass again and drained it in one bitter swallow. The scotch did nothing to numb the pain that had been festering for 30 years. "I never said," Maya began, but Jane cut her off. "You said I was too young, too poor, that keeping her would ruin both our lives." Jane's voice rose, sharp and accusatory. "You said she deserved better than a teenage mother with no future. Well, congratulations, Maya. I built that future you wanted for me. I became someone. I'm successful, powerful, respected, and I'm completely alone. You don't get to do this, Jane said, her voice breaking despite herself. You don't get to call me after 3 years of silence and demand I drop everything because now it's convenient for you. Convenient. Maya laughed, a hollow, painful sound. Jane, I'm dying. I need my sister. I need to tell you something about Naomi. Something I should have told you 30 years ago. Jane's world tilted. Don't you dare speak her name. Someone has to, Maya whispered. Because you won't. You buried her like she never existed. The line went dead. Jane stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Her perfectly controlled facade cracked. For a moment, she was 18 again. The hospital room, the fluorescent lights too bright, the nurse placing a tiny, perfect baby in her arms. You have 10 minutes, the adoption counselor had said. Say goodbye. 10 minutes to memorize a face. 10 minutes to whisper a name no one else would ever use. 10 minutes before they took her daughter away forever. Maya had been there. 17 years old, holding Jane's hand, crying with her. You're doing the right thing, Maya kept saying. She deserves a better life than we can give her. Jane blinked, returning to her penthouse. She walked to her bedroom, methodically began packing for London. The merger would take 3 months, maybe longer. 3 months away from Maya's dying demands. 3 months away from the past clawing its way back. She opened her closet, reached for her luggage on the top shelf. Her hand knocked something loose. A shoebox fell, spilling its contents across the pristine white carpet. Photographs, letters she'd never sent, and there a single ultrasound image. Jane picked it up with trembling hands, the tiny blob that became Naomi, written in her 18-year-old handwriting. My baby girl, I'm so sorry. Behind it, another photo she'd forgotten. Herself at 18, visibly pregnant, taken by Maya at their apartment, but something else caught her eye. In the corner of the photo, barely visible in a dress, the lake house, their father's old place, where she'd hidden all the evidence of her biggest secret. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. Car arriving in 30 minutes. London awaits. Jane stared at the photo, then at the lake house address. She had a choice to make. Jane swept through the airport terminal like a force of nature. Her powder blue designer outfit turned heads, gold jewelry catching the overhead lights. She radiated power, control, wealth. Everything she'd built to prove that impossible choice 30 years ago had been worth it. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. The merger team, her assistant, investors demanding reassurance. I'm handling it, she snapped into the phone, weaving through crowds. The London team is prepared. She stopped dead. Against a concrete pillar, 20 feet from her gate, sat a woman. Young, maybe late 20s, with beautiful locks framing an exhausted but dignified face. She wore a worn olive jacket over a dark hoodie, both too thin for the air conditioning. In her arms, an infant barely weeks old wrapped in a beige blanket so threadbare Jane could see through it. The woman's eyes met Jane's. Everything inside Jane seized up. Those eyes, dark, haunted, but somehow familiar, like looking into a mirror that showed her own soul. Miss Clark? Her assistant's voice crackled through the phone. You still there? Jane ended the call without responding. Her feet moved before her brain caught up. She found herself kneeling in her expensive outfit on the dirty airport floor. Are you okay? Jane heard herself ask. The woman looked up, surprised anyone had stopped. We're fine, thank you. But the baby's lips were tinged blue. The thin blanket was criminally inadequate. You're not fine, Jane said. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere she'd kept locked for 3 decades. When did you last eat? Where are you staying? The woman's eyes filled with tears. My ex, he found us at the shelter. I had to run. I don't have anywhere. Her voice broke. I'm trying so hard. Jane's hand moved to her designer handbag, pulled out a set of keys. I have a lake house, upstate, about 40 miles from here. She pressed the keys into the woman's trembling hand. Stay as long as you need. There's food, heat, everything. Why would you? The woman stared at the keys like they were impossible. You don't even know me. I'm Jane. What's your name? Nathalie. And this is Emma. Jane's breath caught. Emma, the name she almost gave her own daughter before settling on Naomi. Why are you doing this? Natalie whispered. For a complete stranger? Jane looked at baby Emma. At Natalie's face. Those familiar, haunting eyes. I don't know, Jane admitted, standing abruptly. Something about you. Her boarding call echoed through the terminal. She walked away, her heart pounding. Behind her, Natalie called out, Thank you, I promise I'll take care of your home. Jane didn't look back. Couldn't. Because those eyes had triggered something impossible. A memory 30 years old. The face of the baby they'd taken from her arms. Jane stared out the first-class window at clouds 30,000 feet below. Her champagne sat untouched. Her laptop remained closed. All she could see were those eyes. Natalie's eyes. Why did they feel so familiar? The memory crashed over her without permission. The hospital, 30 years ago, the adoption counselor, placing a warm, tiny weight in her arms. 10 minutes, the woman had said. Jane had looked down at her daughter's face. Perfect. Impossible. Hers for exactly 10 minutes. Naomi, she'd whispered, pressing her lips to the baby's forehead. I named you Naomi. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maya had been there, crying silently in the corner. When they took the baby away, Maya held Jane while she screamed. You did the right thing, Maya had kept saying. You did the right thing. But if it was the right thing, why did it feel like dying? The plane landed. London swallowed her whole. For 3 weeks, Jane became the attorney everyone feared. Ruthless, brilliant, unyielding. She decimated opposition arguments. She worked 18-hour days. She buried everything Natalie's eyes, Maya's dying plea, the baby named Naomi under mountains of contract law and hostile negotiations. At 2 a.m. in her hotel suite, her phone rang. Jane. It was Rachel, Maya's partner. You need to come home. Now. She has maybe 48 hours. I can't. Jane's voice was mechanical. I'm in final negotiations. Everything depends on... Everything? Rachel's voice broke. Your sister is dying, and everything is a merger deal? Let me talk to her. Silence. Then Maya's voice, barely a whisper. Still running, Janie? Maya, Still hiding from what you did, from who you are, from the daughter you threw away. Don't. I found her, Jane. Maya's words cut like glass. Years ago, I hired investigators. I found Naomi, and I never told you because you didn't deserve to know. But now I'm dying, and you need to know she's been searching for you. The line went dead. Jane called back immediately. Straight to voicemail. She called Rachel. Put Maya back on, please. Rachel's sob told her everything. She's gone, Jane. She's gone. Jane stood alone in the sterile hotel room. The phone slipped from her hands. No, please, Maya. What did you mean? You found her? Where is she? Maya. But there was no answer. Only silence. And one impossible question burning through her mind. If Maya found Naomi years ago, why didn't she tell me? Unless... Jane's blood turned to ice. Unless Naomi didn't want to be found. 3 months became 4. 4 became 6. The merger negotiations turned toxic, hostile, endless. Jane welcomed it. Every 18-hour day was another day she didn't have to think about Maya's last words. I found her. Every conference call was another shield against the guilt eating her alive. She'd missed her own sister's funeral, buried herself in contract clauses while Maya was lowered into the ground. Her property manager called weekly. Miss Clark, just checking in. The woman at your lake house, Natalie? She's wonderful. The gardens never looked better. She's very respectful, very grateful. Jane always cut him off. Fine, good, I'll be home soon. But soon never came. The dreams started in month 5. Always the same, a baby crying in the dark, a woman's voice achingly familiar, calling, Mama, where are you? Why did you leave me? Jane would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat. Those haunting eyes from the airport burned into her mind. In month 6, cleaning out her London apartment, she found them. A box she'd shipped to herself years ago and never opened. Letters from the adoption agency. 20 years of unopened correspondence. Her hands shook as she tore into the first one, dated 18 years ago. Dear Miss Clark, per your request for updates on the child placed for adoption, we regret to inform you that the adoptive family, the Richardsons, relocated out of state. They legally changed the child's name. All further contact requests must be denied per sealed adoption terms. Changed her name, moved away. Naomi, whoever she'd become, had been erased. Jane read through every letter with growing horror. Her investigators' reports, dead ends, cold trails, subject untraceable. She'd spent 30 years running from the truth, running from the hospital room, running from Maya's disappointed eyes, running from the name Naomi. And all that running had led absolutely nowhere. The final merger meeting happened on a gray morning in month 7. Jane signed the papers with mechanical precision. Billions of dollars transferred. Handshakes, congratulations, victory. She felt nothing. That night, she booked a flight home. I need to go to the lake house, she told her assistant. I need to see if what? If the homeless woman with familiar eyes is still there? If Maya's dying words meant something? If 30 years of guilt can be undone by seeing a stranger's face? On the plane home, Jane opened her phone, scrolled to Maya's last voicemail, the one she'd been too afraid to listen to. Her finger hovered over play, then pressed it. Maya's voice, weak but urgent. Jane, listen to me. Naomi, your daughter, her adoptive parents renamed her. But I found her. And Jane, she has a baby, your granddaughter. They're in trouble. They're static. Then nothing. Jane's world stopped. They're in trouble. The plane couldn't land fast enough. 7 months. Jane had been gone 7 months. The rental car pulled into the lake house driveway, and she nearly drove past. This couldn't be the same property. The house she'd left abandoned and forgotten now glowed with life. Fresh white paint gleamed in the afternoon sun. Flower boxes overflowed with late autumn blooms. The shutters had been repaired. The garden, once overgrown and wild, was meticulously maintained. Someone had turned her neglected refuge into a home. Jane's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Maya's voicemail played on loop in her mind. They're in trouble. She killed the engine. Sat in silence. Through the front window, she could see warm light, movement, the shadow of someone passing by. She has a baby, your granddaughter. Jane's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. The homeless woman from the airport couldn't possibly be. It was impossible. She'd have recognized her own daughter, wouldn't she? But those eyes, those haunting, familiar eyes. She forced herself out of the car. Her designer heels clicked on the stone path, the path that had been cracked and weed-choked 7 months ago, now pristine. Each step felt like walking toward either salvation or destruction. Soft music drifted through the walls. A woman's voice, humming something gentle, a baby's gurgling laugh. Jane stopped at the door. Her hand reached for the knob, then pulled back. What if Maya was wrong? What if this is just a coincidence? What if I'm building hope out of desperation? What if she's right? Jane pressed her palm against the door, took a breath that felt like her first in 7 months. Naomi, your daughter, she has a baby. The humming inside stopped. Footsteps approached from the other side of the door. Jane's hand closed around the knob, turned it, pushed. The door swung open. The interior walls were covered with photographs. Old photographs. Photographs that had been hidden in the attic for 30 years. Pictures of Jane at 18, pregnant. Hospital bracelets pinned to poster board. Adoption papers spread across the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Letters Jane had written but never sent, now framed and displayed. And in the center of the room, holding a baby, stood Natalie. Her locks framed a face streaked with tears. "Hello, Jane," she said quietly. Or should I say, "Hello, Mom?" Jane's knees buckled. You're... Naomi, the woman whispered. "You named me Naomi, before they took me away and called me Nathalie instead." The room spun. Jane grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. How did you... Natalie gestured to the photographs. "The attic. I found everything 3 months ago. Every letter you never sent. Every search you gave up on." Her voice broke. I've been waiting for you to come home, wondering if you'd even care that your daughter has been living in your house this whole time." Jane couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at the face that was somehow her own face, 30 years younger. "My baby," she whispered. "My Naomi." "Your homeless daughter," Nathalie corrected, her voice sharp with 3 decades of abandonment. "The one you gave away, the one you apparently forgot existed." Jane's legs gave out. She collapsed against the doorframe, sliding to the floor in her expensive suit, gold jewelry jangling against wood. "No. No. This isn't you can't be." Her voice shattered. "I would have known. I would have recognized my own daughter." "Would you?" Natalie's laugh was bitter, broken. "You looked right at me in that airport, knelt beside me, gave me your keys, and you had no idea who I was." Jane stared up at the walls. Her 18-year-old face stared back from a dozen photographs. Hospital ID bracelets, the adoption certificate with both their names, Jane Marie Clark. "Baby girl Clark, Naomi." "I found them in April," Nathalie said, her voice trembling. "I was cleaning the attic, found boxes marked, 'Do not open,' and I opened them." She gestured to a letter framed on the wall. Jane's own handwriting, shaky and young. "My dearest Naomi, I'm writing this on your first birthday, even though I'll never send it. I hope wherever you are, someone is singing to you. I hope you're loved. I hope you never know how much it destroys me that I'm not the one holding you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." 30 letters, 1 for each year, all unsent. "You wrote me every year," Nathalie whispered. "Every single year on my birthday, but you never tried to find me." "I did." Jane's scream tore through the room. "I hired investigators. The adoption was sealed. Your parents moved you out of state, changed your name. Changed my name to Natalie Richardson." The pain in her voice cut like glass. "And then abandoned me at 16 when I got too difficult to manage. Too much like my real mother," they said. "Too stubborn. Too angry." Jane's world tilted. "They abandoned you?" "Foster care. Then aged out at 18. Met a man who said he loved me. Got pregnant. He turned violent. Nathalie's tears fell onto baby Emma's blanket. And I became you. Homeless and terrified with a newborn, history repeating itself." "Oh, God," Jane crawled forward on her knees. "Natalie, Naomi, I never wanted." "Don't." Natalie stepped back. "Don't come closer. You don't get to touch me. You don't get to cry for me. You had 30 years to find me and you stopped looking." "I never stopped looking." Jane's voice broke completely. "I never stopped searching. I never stopped hoping. Every day for 30 years, I wondered where you were, if you were happy, if you hated me." "I did hate you," Nathalie said simply. "I hated you so much it poisoned everything. And then you appeared in that airport like some kind of angel, offering me salvation, and I took it. I took your keys, and I came here and I found the truth." She looked down at Emma, then back at Jane. "And now I need to know why. Why did you give me away?" They sat on opposite sides of the room, 2 women crying, a chasm of 30 years between them. "The Richardsons," Nathalie began, her voice hollow. "That's what they called themselves. My parents. They were wealthy, educated, perfect on paper. And they hated me from the moment I could think for myself." Jane's hand covered her mouth, stifling a sob. "I was never good enough, never grateful enough. They'd remind me constantly, 'We saved you. We chose you. You should be thankful.'" Natalie's laugh was jagged. "But I always felt wrong, like I was wearing someone else's skin, like somewhere out there was a person who would recognize me." "I searched," Jane whispered. "Every investigator came back empty. Because they moved us to Nevada when I was 2, changed my last name to theirs, sealed everything tight." Natalie wiped her eyes. "When I was 16, I asked about my birth mother. That's when they told me you were a drug addict who didn't want me, that you signed me away without a second thought." "That's a lie," Jane lurched forward. "I held you. I named you. I know that now." Natalie cut her off. "But at 16, I believed them, and I got angry, started acting out. So they did what you did. They gave me away, dropped me at a group home and never looked back." Jane doubled over, grief tearing through her like physical pain. Foster care was hell, but I survived, aged out at 18 with nothing, no family, no identity, just this hole inside me that nothing could fill. Nathalie looked down at Emma. Then I met Marcus. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought love should be. By the time I realized he was violent, I was pregnant. No, Jane breathed. I became you, Nathalie said, her voice breaking. 18 years old, pregnant, terrified, alone. History repeating itself like a curse. I ran when Emma was 3 weeks old. He found us at 2 shelters. I was sleeping in the airport when you appeared. She looked up, meeting Jane's eyes. This woman in designer clothes with kind eyes, offering me salvation. I thought God finally sent me an angel. Her voice hardened. I didn't know she was the woman who threw me away 30 years ago. I didn't throw you away, Jane sobbed. I loved you. I love you. Then why? Nathalie's scream shook the walls. If you loved me so much, why did you give me to people who would destroy me? Why did you choose your career over your daughter? Jane opened her mouth to answer. But the words that came out weren't the ones she'd practiced for 30 years. Because I was terrified you'd end up just like me. His name was David, Jane said, her voice raw. Your father. He was 21, a college student. I was 18, working 2 jobs, trying to save for community college. When I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared. Literally. Changed his number, dropped out of school, vanished. Nathalie's grip on Emma tightened. My parents, your grandparents, they were church people, respected in the community. When they found out, my father said, "You've shamed this family." My mother packed my bags herself. Jane's tears flowed freely now. They threw me out at 4 months pregnant. Told me never to come back. But Maya was 17. She snuck out at night to bring me food, held my hand through every doctor's appointment. She was the only person in the world who didn't abandon me. Jane's voice cracked. Until I abandoned her too. What do you mean? When you were born, the adoption counselor gave me 10 minutes. That's all. 10 minutes to hold you, to memorize your face, to whisper your name. Jane looked directly at Nathalie. I wanted to keep you so badly it physically hurt, but I was homeless, penniless, 18 years old with no family and no future. So you gave up. So I tried to give you a better life than mine. Jane's voice rose. I thought the Richardsons would love you, protect you, give you everything I couldn't. I thought I was saving you from becoming me. Instead, you gave me to people who made me wish I'd never been born. The words landed like bullets. Jane crumpled. I spent 30 years building walls, becoming successful, proving I made the right choice, but I never had another relationship, never had other children. Every birthday, every holiday, I wondered where you were, what you looked like, if you were happy. Maya found me, Nathalie said quietly. She told you that before she died, didn't she? Yes. Jane's voice broke completely. She called while I was in London, said she'd found you, that you had a baby, that you were in trouble. And I told her I couldn't come home. I chose a merger deal over my dying sister because I was too much of a coward to face the truth. What truth? That I destroyed everything I touched, Jane sobbed. Maya died alone because of me. You suffered because of me. I spent 30 years punishing myself, and somehow I managed to punish everyone else too. Nathalie stood, still holding Emma, her face unreadable. Did you ever love me? Even once? Jane looked up at her daughter, really looked at her for the first time in 30 years. Every single day, she whispered. You're the reason for everything. My success, my loneliness, my fear. Everything I built was to prove that losing you meant something. That it wasn't just destruction, but it was. I loved you so much it broke me, and I've been broken ever since. Silence filled the room. Then Emma started to cry. And Nathalie made a decision that would change everything. Emma's cry shattered the silence. Nathalie rocked her instinctively, but the baby's wails intensified. 30 years of pain hung between them like a wall made of glass, visible, fragile, ready to either shatter or remain forever. May I? Jane's voice broke. May I hold her? Nathalie froze. This was the moment. The choice that would define everything. She looked at Jane, really looked at her, not the woman who gave her away, not the successful attorney in designer clothes, just a broken woman who'd spent 30 years punishing herself. Slowly, Nathalie walked forward, extended her arms. Jane reached up from where she knelt on the floor, and Nathalie placed Emma into her grandmother's trembling hands. The baby quieted immediately. Jane looked down at Emma's face and broke completely. She has your eyes, my eyes, our eyes. 3 generations of the same pain, Nathalie whispered. Or 3 generations who finally break the cycle, Jane countered. They stayed like that, Jane, kneeling, Nathalie standing, Emma between them until Nathalie slowly sank to her knees too. Their foreheads touched, both women sobbing. I can't promise this will be easy, Jane said. I can't promise I won't fail you again, but I promise I'm here now. I promise I'm not running anymore. I'm terrified you'll leave, Nathalie admitted. Everyone always leaves. Then you'll have to teach me how to stay. 3 months later, they stood together at Maya's grave. She brought us back together, Nathalie said softly, her hand in Jane's. Even after she died, she was still fighting for you. Jane placed flowers on the headstone. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for believing I could be better. I'm sorry I didn't come home in time. But I'm home now. They walked back to the lake house where Emma was learning to take her first steps. Jane held the baby's tiny hands while Nathalie watched, her college nursing textbooks spread across the table. Thank you for giving me your keys, Nathalie said suddenly. Jane looked up, tears in her eyes. Thank you for opening the door I was too afraid to knock on. Emma took a wobbly step forward. Then another. Then she fell, not into emptiness, but into her grandmother's waiting arms. Sometimes, Jane whispered, the family we're looking for has been searching for us too, and sometimes a single act of grace is the key that unlocks everything. 3 generations. Finally, whole. Finally home.